Welcome to PTE Updates. For more videos, subscribe our channel.
The amount of money drug companies spend on TV ads has doubled in recent years, and it's no wonder. Studies show the commercials work. Consumers go to their doctors with a suggestion for a prescription drug they saw advertised on TV. Now, a study in the Annals of Family Medicine raises questions about the message these ads promote. NPR's Patty Naiman reports.
You are most likely to see drug ads during prime time, especially around the news. Researchers analyzed 38 ads aimed at people with conditions like hypertension, herpes, high cholesterol, depression, arthritis, and allergies. The drug industry says these ads arm consumers with information, but researchers found that though the information was technically accurate, the tone was misleading. UCLA psychologist Dominic Frosch headed the study.
What we would see in these ads is that before taking the prescription drug, the character's life was out of control. And the loss of control really extended beyond just the impact of the health condition.
For example, herpes patients were portrayed as being incapacitated for days, insomniacs utterly out of sync on the job, and depressed patients friendless and boring at parties.
When the character is then shown taking the drug, he then magically regains complete control of his life.
None of the ads, of course, mentioned lifestyle changes that could also help treat the condition. After all, it's mass marketing. But in this case, Frosch says, prescription medications are not like soap. Dr. David Kessler is dean of UCSF School of Medicine. He headed the FDA for 7 years.
Volunteers in scientific studies sometimes get compensated. The payment can be cash, a gift card, or something almost worthless.
It's amazing what people will do for a lollipop when they've had a few drinks.
Simon Moore is a professor of public health research at Cardiff University in the UK. And the lollipops were for people who agreed to blow into a breathalyzer while out on a Friday or Saturday night in Wales. More than 1,800 people agreed to the exchange. And the scores covered a wide range of alcohol intake.
So that would go from 0 upwards. I think one of the largest scores we had was about 120, which is a near-death experience.
The researchers also gave a subset of volunteers a short survey about drinking habits and health risks. Questions like, how drunk are you right now? And how extreme has your drinking been tonight? And they found that even very drunk respondents felt relatively more sober if they were surrounded by even drunker people. In other words, our perception of intoxication and its risks is relative.
So this is the point, as you change context, perceptions will change, although the absolute level of alcohol in the system doesn't change.
The study is in the journal BMC Public Health. Moore says one way to use this finding is for better city zoning.
In the United Kingdom, for example, there's been a big push to put more and more licensed premises that sell alcohol in the same district, in the same area. And what this does is create a concentration of drinkers. So what we might argue from this is, well, let's try and break that up a little bit.
A lot of people in the United States are coffee drinkers. Over the last few years, a trend has been developing to introduce premium specially blended coffees known as gourmet coffees into the American market. Boston seems to have been the birthplace of this trend. In fact, major gourmet coffee merchants from other cities like Seattle and San Francisco came to Boston, where today they're engaged in a kind of coffee war with Boston's merchants. They are all competing for a significant share of the gourmet coffee market. Surprisingly, the competition among these leading gourmet coffee businesses will not hurt any of them. Experts predict that the gourmet coffee market in the United States is growing and will continue to grow to the point that gourmet coffee will soon capture half of what is now a $1.5 million market and will be an $8 million market by 1999. Studies have shown that coffee drinkers who convert to gourmet coffee seldom go back to the regular brands found in supermarkets.
A lot of us are not aware of the extraordinary successes of the Millennium Development Goals, several of which have achieved their targets long before the due date. That proves that this species of humanity is capable of achieving extraordinary progress if it really acts together and it really tries hard. But if I had to put it in a nutshell, these days, I sort of feel that globalization has taken us by surprise, and we've been slow to respond to it. If you look at the downside of globalization, it really does seem to be sometimes overwhelming. All of the grand challenges that we face today, like climate change and human rights and demographics and terrorism and pandemics and narco-trafficking and human slavery and species loss, I could go on. We're not making an awful lot of progress against an awful lot of those challenges. So in a nutshell, that's the challenge that we all face today at this interesting point in history. That's clearly what we've got to do next. We've somehow got to get our act together, and we've got to figure out how to globalize the solutions better so that we don't simply become a species which is the victim of the globalization of problems.
There's no denying that the concept of family has certainly changed in American society over the last few decades. Statistics continue to show that fewer Americans are getting married, and those who do so are having fewer children or none at all. More marriages are ending in divorce. More people are living alone, cohabiting with someone, or marrying more than once in a lifetime and creating step-families. Traditional families once dominated every neighborhood. A traditional family consists of a husband and wife, plus their children, whether biological or adopted, if they have any. Today, American society displays greater diversity, and many American households can be considered non-traditional under this definition. Family structures that may be considered non-traditional or alternative include single parenthood, cohabitation, same-sex families, and polygamy. Let's take a brief look at each of these. Single parenthood was fairly common prior to the 20th century due to the more frequent deaths of spouses, but at that time, there was a certain stigma surrounding being a single parent. Today, single parenthood is considered more acceptable. One-parent families may still result from the death of a significant other, but now also come about through circumstances including a parent's choice or divorce. Cohabitation is the sharing of a household by an unmarried couple. This arrangement continues to gain popularity in the U.S., and cohabitating couples and their children made up approximately 15 million households, according to the 2012 U.S. Census. Cohabitation can be seen as an alternative form of marriage, and in many ways is simple.
According to adjusted calculations published by Statistics Finland, Finland's greenhouse gas emissions in 1990, the benchmark year for the Kyoto Protocol, amounted to 71.5 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. This revised baseline figure is about 1 million tonnes higher than the previously calculated total of 70.5 million tonnes. This adjustment is due to improved calculation methods and does not affect Finland's commitment under the EU's internal allocation of emission reduction obligations to get emissions back down to 1990 levels by the period 2008 to 2012. Finland's latest emission figures form part of an inventory report submitted to the European Commission in mid-January. The report has been compiled by Statistics Finland, the organisation responsible for the National Greenhouse Gas Inventory System, and also features emission trends over the whole period 1990 to 2004. The report was additionally discussed by Finland's EU Affairs Ministerial.
I like the history, and one thing I want to go over briefly is the history of epigenetic research, and this is from my perspective now. I got into this field in the early 90s, and what I have here is plotted publications, total publications, as a function of time, year, and on a linear graph. So what I did for this is I wanted to show that basically up until around the year 2000, there's an inflection point right around 2005, right in here, where it looks like basically nothing really is happening much in the field of epigenetics, to the point where it's actually going vertical and a lot is happening in the field of epigenetics. Now, if you plot this rather than on linear paper, semi-log paper, what you will find is that what I'm showing is an exponential growth curve for publications in the field of epigenetics. And that in the scientific community, there's a doubling of the epigenetics papers every 1.5 to 2 years. Last year alone, we put into publication somewhere between 15 and 20,000 papers, which took us 15 years from 1990 to 2005.